Behind me, Merritt Bowman is a 49-year-old father of twin boys, which you could see, and a football coach and paraprofessional at Deptford High School in New Jersey. For years, Merritt put off going to the doctor because he was, like many Americans, afraid he could not afford it. But when the Affordable Care Act was passed, he finally got the coverage he could afford. 4 years ago, after not feeling well, Merritt made the doctor's appointment and was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, a disease that affects over 10% of Americans and disproportionately impacts Black Americans like Merritt, who are 60% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes and twice as likely to die from it. Today, Merritt takes insulin and other medications, and his condition has thankfully improved. Merritt said, and I quote, "Obamacare made it so I was not afraid of the costs of going to the doctor. If I didn't have insurance and didn't get diagnosed, who knows where I would be right now." But Merritt is worried about what will happen if the Affordable Care Act gets overturned. He said, and I quote, "Now I have a pre-existing condition. My insurance covers my medications, my equipment to monitor my diabetes. If that's taken away from me, what's going to happen? I can't afford those on my own." Michelle Luris from Palisades Park, New Jersey, lost her husband, John, last year when he passed away suddenly at the age of 58. Michelle relied on health insurance through John's job, but when he died, their insurance went away. She was given the option to continue his plan, but she couldn't afford the cost of $800 a month. So Michelle signed up for coverage on the insurance marketplace, where she qualified for a subsidy that made it more affordable. Today, she's insured and she can manage her diabetes, heart disease, and an autoimmune disease because of her coverage. Like Merritt, Michelle also relies on insulin and other prescription medications. If the ACA was overturned, Michelle said, quote, "I could lose my house if I didn't have affordable health care. I would have to sell my home. I like where I live. I don't want to lose my home." People like Merritt and Michelle are understandably scared right now. President Trump has told America he would end the ACA. He promised explicitly that he would only nominate judges that would do the right thing and eliminate the Affordable Care Act. People like Merritt and Michelle know what a future without the ACA looks like. It looks like 130 million Americans with pre-existing conditions, from cancer survivors to people with disabilities, being charged more or denied coverage completely. It looks like 20 million Americans losing their access to potentially life-saving care in the middle of a pandemic that's already killed over 214,000 Americans. In New Jersey, we've lost over 16,000 people to COVID-19. 595,000 people would lose their coverage without the ACA. For millions of Americans, a future without the ACA looks like being forced to sell your house if you can't afford your health care. It looks like not having access to a doctor when you're sick. It looks like having to choose between paying for groceries and paying for medicine. And people are scared right now for another reason, because they know what a future without the protections of Roe v. Wade looks like, because President Trump has explicitly stated that he would only put up Supreme Court nominees that would overturn Roe v. Wade. He said it clearly. We should believe him. And that, without Roe v. Wade, our country looks like people being denied the ability to make decisions about their own bodies, not just while they're pregnant, but being stripped of the right to plan for their futures. It looks like women of color, low-income women, and women living in rural areas who can't just pack up and leave if abortion is restricted or criminalized where they live. It looks like them being left with no options. It looks like state laws proliferating throughout our country that seek to control and criminalize women. It looks like the government interfering with women making the most personal medical decisions. It looks like a country in which states may write laws that could subject women who have miscarriages to investigations to ensure they didn't have abortions. In America today, people are scared. You've heard from my colleagues, we're getting calls to our office where people are afraid. More than 214,000 Americans have died, many of them isolated and alone, away from friends and families. Tens of millions of jobs have been lost. 1 in 3 American families with children aren't getting enough food to eat. More than 100,000 small businesses have closed permanently. Lines at food banks in the wealthiest nation on the planet have stretched for miles. We could be, as the Senate, we should be, as the Senate, working in a bipartisan way to try to get this virus under control, to get relief to people who are hurting, who are struggling, who are afraid, to help people who are unemployed, to let doctors and nurses and hospital staffs putting their lives on the line right now in state after state where COVID is rising, know that we have their backs in a pandemic. But instead of doing anything to help people who are struggling right now, we are here. We're here. I'm so glad, I'm really glad that my colleagues who contracted COVID-19 at the Rose Garden Super Spreader event for Judge Barrett had access to the care that you and your families needed. That is right. This is a blessing. The problem is the people who will come through here today to wipe down the desks and empty the garbage, that will vacuum the floor, like people all over our country who are working today in factories, teaching children in schools. They don't have direct line to the nation's top health experts. They can't show up to work sick, and they might not have space to distance themselves at home to protect their families. We literally stopped the Senate from functioning with the exception of this hearing. That's why we're here. We're not just 22 days from an election. We're in the middle of an ongoing election when millions of people have already started voting because Donald Trump and most of my Senate Republican colleagues know the truth. They won't be able to get away with this after the American people have spoken in this election. Donald Trump and my Senate Republican colleagues in this room today know that the American people don't want the ACA overturned. Donald Trump and my Senate Republican colleagues know that the majority of Americans actually don't want Roe v. Wade overturned, that the majority of Americans don't want to see abortion criminalized in our states. But that is exactly why we are here today, because Donald Trump and Senate Republicans know that the American people don't want this, so they have to act now. They don't trust the American people, which is so painful because that's what they said. They said we should trust the American people, and what the American people say under President Obama 269 days from an election. And then, after that election, they tried time and time again to overturn the Affordable Care Act, but a handful of Republicans stopped them. You see, they tried in the Senate, they tried in the House, over 70 attempts to rip down the Affordable Care Act, but now Donald Trump has said explicitly he's going to do it through the courts by making the nomination we see here today. That's why we are here. The American people should know that that is what this is all about, rushing this nomination through to sit a Supreme Court justice in time to hear a case before the Supreme Court that will end the Affordable Care Act. We're here because in the middle of a deadly pandemic, in the middle of an ongoing election, Senate Republicans have found a nominee in Judge Barrett who they know will do what they couldn't do, subvert the will of the American people and overturn the ACA and overturn Roe v. Wade. That's what this is about. That's why we're here. It's very simple. Senate Republicans know the American people don't want this, but they don't care because they have only one small window of opportunity to work the system, betray what the American people want. And so they're desperately rushing to complete this process before America starts voting. But they don't have to do this. If one of my colleagues will stand up on this committee, we can hold this over until after an election. If two of my colleagues on the Senate floor agree with their other two colleagues, Republicans, we can stop this. Otherwise, this is a charade when they say this is a normal Judiciary Committee hearing for a Supreme Court nomination. There's nothing about this that's normal. It's not normal that Senate Republicans are rushing through a confirmation hearing, violating their own words, their own statements, betraying the trust of the American people and their colleagues, and failing to take in this hearing even the most basic safety protections to protect people around them, all to ensure that tens of millions of people will lose their health care when we're 7 months into one of the worst public health crises in the history of our country. It's not normal. This is not normal that millions of Americans like Michelle and Merritt are just scared of a deadly virus. They're scared of their fellow Americans who are sitting in this room right now. They're scared that their government and their institutions will be manipulated by people who could not work through the democratic process to take away their health care and are trying an end run to achieve that. Nothing about this today is normal. This is not normal. What is going on in America today, in the midst of a deadly pandemic and an ongoing election, having a rushed Supreme Court nomination hearing is not normal, and we cannot normalize it. People are voting right now. The American people should decide. The American people should decide. The American people should decide. I will not be voting to confirm Judge Barrett's nomination.